Okay, so today we're going to be looking at reference angles. A reference angle is an acute angle that is always taken positive between the terminal side of an angle and the horizontal or x-axis. So in this screencast, right now what you're going to see is that the angle is in black, and in blue is the reference angle to that angle. And if I go in the negative direction, you're going to see that the reference angle is still blue, but now your angle, which is negative, is going to be in red, just so that we understand. Let's review also that right here in the upper right-hand side, we're in quadrant 1. Upper left-hand side, we're in quadrant 2. Bottom left-hand side, we're in quadrant 3. And bottom right-hand side, we're in quadrant 4. And that doesn't change even if we're going positive or negative. Those quadrants always remain. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through a couple different angles and their corresponding reference angles. And your job is to try and figure out how you would calculate these reference angles. So in the first quadrant, if my angle is 37 degrees, my reference angle would also be 37 degrees. And what you'll do, you're going to have an opportunity to play with this program here in just a minute. If I go ahead and drag this a little bit, still in the first quadrant, if my angle is 60 degrees, my reference angle is also 60 degrees. Okay. If I go over here to the second quadrant, I now have an angle that's 127 degrees. And interestingly, my reference angle is 53 degrees. If I continue on, and I go to the third quadrant, I now have an angle of 200 degrees and a reference angle of 20. And so what you're looking at right now is the relationship between the angle and the reference angle based on the definition of what a reference angle is, because you're going to want to be able to be given an angle in standard position and tell what its reference angle is. Okay, if I continue to rotate this angle, and I'm now in the fourth quadrant, and I'm going to take it to 333 degrees. So at 330 degrees, so here's my standard angle in standard position at 330 degrees, 333. Now my reference angle is 27 degrees. We're going to continue to rotate. This is also a good review of drawing angles in standard position. If I now rotate, and I now am at 400 degrees, so I've done one rotation plus some, now my reference angle is 40 degrees. We're going to continue on a little bit more. And now if I'm at 590 degrees, which is in the third quadrant, my reference angle is 50 degrees. Okay? Again, paying attention to what the relationship is between the angle and its reference angle based on the definition and how you would calculate it. Alright, so now if I'm at 0 degrees, now let's go in the negative direction and see if what you thought was happening in the positive direction remains the same in the negative direction. So I'm going to go right here and have, again, now my angle in standard position is in red just because I'm going in the negative direction. So if I have an angle of negative 30 degrees, my reference angle is 30 degrees. If I stay in this quadrant and I have a reference angle, or angle of negative 70, my reference angle is 70 degrees. Let's continue on. If I rotate now into the third quadrant, going in a negative direction, if I have an angle of negative 160 degrees, my reference angle is 20 degrees. If I continue on, I'm now in the second quadrant, but I'm going in a negative direction, at negative 240 degrees, I have a reference angle of 60 degrees. And over here, the last one I'm going to show you, well, let's do another one after this. If I'm at negative 350 degrees, I have a reference angle of 10 degrees. And we can go for more than one rotation the same way that we did with the positive angle. So at negative 570, I have a reference angle of 30 degrees. So what you're going to do right now is you're going to play around with the same app. You're going to go under Unit 6 Unit 6A, and you're going to go to Videos, and you'll see for day 2 this application with reference angles, and you're going to play around with it for a little bit, and your goal, again, based on the definition and what you just saw me do and what you're about to do, is to try and figure out, based on your quadrant and just a general idea of how you would calculate any reference angle based on whatever angle and standard position you get, positive or negative.